on, everyone? Travis Brown here with at the Eagle with Robert Cessna, also with the Eagle. We're here at Kyle Field. Texas A&M just notched their first top 5 win in the Jimbo Fisher era in 8 tries, beating Florida today. Cease, what's your quick takeaways from the game?
Just a huge win. The fact is, first of all, just to win the game, but A&M was down by 11. They really showed a lot of poise, considering they made a lot of mistakes. The bottom line is, it was a huge win.
Yeah. I think you can't get past the fact that it was a win. It was probably one of Kellen Mond's best performances in Aggieland. The offense was moving the ball well. Mond was just making those crisp passes to his receivers where they could catch the ball and continue to make the play. And maybe none bigger than some of the 2 to Caleb Chapman, one of them for a touchdown.
I just have to laugh because Mond played a great game. You go back and look, he made some throws with a lot of pressure in his face the second half because Florida realized they weren't able to cover anybody, so they brought extra pressure. Mond was under a lot of pressure at different times. And I have to laugh because he threw a couple balls that probably should have been intercepted. But you go back to last week, the guy at Alabama made a great interception, and if Preston would knock the ball away, he'd had great stats last week. He really had a great game last week. No one wanted to give him credit.
Right.
And, Mond's been under a lot of fire, rightfully so. He hasn't won this type of game. But he won the game today. Did he get a little bit lucky? Yeah, but he made his luck. When we threw downfield a couple times to Chapman, and I feel glad for the guy because he takes a lot of heat. When you're the quarterback or the coach, you take a lot of grief, and he's taken a lot of grief. He's lost a lot of big games, but he won this.
You mentioned a good point about them a lot of times bringing 5, 6 guys in the pass rush, and you have to give hats off to the offensive line too. Might be one of their best games as well in the last 2 seasons too.
Without it, somebody else that I picked on, like everyone did, that offensive line last year was horrible. They were the reason they couldn't. They're the reason they went 0-4 last year against top 5 teams. A big reason because one was on his butt a lot of the times. You can't throw when someone's in your butt all the time, in your face, because you should throw a few balls when people are in your face because people are going to bring pressure. But Mond was constantly worried about were those guys going to block. And last week, if you read between the tea leaves, Jimbo throws things out there because they didn't allow a sack last week. And he said, but now we need – go back and look. He said, we need to now give them an extra second so you can throw that deep pass. The offensive line gave him ability to throw 2 long passes. They opened up huge holes for Spiller. So the offensive line – I'd have to go back to see the last time they played a game to me that was at complete because on some of those, if you watch the game, you need to go back and watch the game. Even on that 3rd and long, that one time, or 4th down when they pulled the 2 guys, it was a well-designed plays. And you could say Spiller ran hard, but there were holes there also, and that goes back to the offensive line.
Yeah, for sure. Want to be sure to make sure that y'all know if you're watching on Facebook Live or on Periscope to be able to fire in your questions, comments, thoughts about the game, and we'll get to those. We'll bring in our 3rd guy on the team, Alex Miller. He'll be the guy, if you fire those in, he'll read your questions, comments, takes. Alex, let's get a quick thought on what you thought about today's game.
Nonetheless, this has got to be Jimbo's biggest win. I mean, the LSU 7 overtime game, that's one people are going to remember forever. But as far as defining wins, moving into this next phase where Jimbo's getting a lot of his guys, I mean, Kellen said it, the talent's here, the classes are coming, the young guys are stepping up. Think about Spiller, Anais Smith, Leal, Weidemeyer. I mean, those are all sophomores. Those are all guys that Jimbo has brought in. You know, Kellen, he's Jimbo's guy now. I mean, sure, someone recruited him, but he's Jimbo's guy. This is his third year in the system. How about Kellen breaking the record? I mean, I don't know if you guys touched on that. I was trying to get everything set up. But yeah, big win for the Aggies. Big second half from Isaiah Spiller.
What you got to remember is not only do you got to reward the players, you got to reward the program, the fans, because why was Florida come in all jacked up? Because Mullen has won 5 more games in 2 years than Jimbo. He put life into that program, back-to-back New Year's Day bowl victories. This is one of the few times, the LSU, you could rally around the LSU victory. That was huge. A&M had to beat LSU because someone didn't do it. But the way that game went, and then they weren't able to build on it the following year, that didn't really get a lot of traction. I think they're going to get a lot of traction out of this victory because I think they're going to build on that the rest of this year. And when you're able to build on something like that, everybody just feels good. There's going to be a lot of people in Bryan College Station when you go out, whether you go to the movies, church, eating, a lot of people smiling.
I think the biggest takeaway from me, or the biggest performance from me, was Caleb Chapman, sophomore wide receiver, who there's been so much talk about how much A&M's offense just stays in a little box. All the passes are 5-10 yards, nothing downfield, no receivers that can get past the defensive secondary. And I think equally as important, they haven't had a wide receiver in a long time that anyone would have any confidence to go up and get the ball over a defensive back. It's been a lot of small possession, slot type of receivers all across the board, and no one has proven that they really have that ability. I think Caleb Chapman today proved not only is he the deep threat, the guy that can get past the defensive secondary, but is a guy who has demonstrated in his second catch, he could go up and get the ball, pull it down, score a touchdown, did some good stuff. It'll be interesting to see, though. He did have to get helped off the field after that play. Jimbo Fisher said they don't know anything yet, so we'll have to follow up on that on Monday to ask how he is and if he will still continue to be that threat for Kellen. But I really thought that was huge in not only setting up the A&M to move the ball, but probably setting up Spiller to have some of those runs in the second half, because they just haven't had that threat that could spread out spread out any defense. All that being said, and I know me and Steve's talked about this, that was not a very good defense that Florida had. And statistically, they came into the game as actually one of the worst in the SEC. That was not a strong defense. However, A&M still, you can't be too down about what A&M's offense did, because they executed. Kellen, for the most part, put those passes where the wide receivers needed them, so that even if it was necessarily a better defense, you would like to think that the end result would have been near the same.
Little things add up to big things. As you mentioned, I thought Chapman made a great play because he was open. And if you're going to be nitpicky, the ball was slightly underthrown, allowed the defender to catch up. But Chapman was so good, he shielded him, made the catch. How many times have we seen people drop that ball or not make the catch? Once again, it's the little things. Smith being out in slot, and I know Alex is going to write about him tomorrow in the Eagle. Suddenly that opens up your offense. Chapman is able to get all those throws because they're worried about Smith. And I really like, Chase Lane, because to me, he catches everything thrown his way. He has a little bit of speed. And suddenly, if you look at him, we put Weidemeyer in. Okay, Chapman, Weidemeyer, Smith, Lane's your fourth option. That's a pretty good fourth option.
Which is such a contrast from what we were talking about, this offensive or this wide receiver core just a week ago. I mean, they really did make some strides. Now on the flip side, we talked about everything that went well. Jimbo Fisher said after the game that it's a win and they're happy and it's an important win, but he certainly wasn't happy after this game. And I think we can all kind of look around, and we're looking around saying that there were so many opportunities that if A&M would have lost this, it would have been easy to go back and say, yeah, that's where they shot themselves in the foot. Yeah, they shot themselves in the foot there. It kind of all started right before halftime when A&M was driving down. They end up having to take a timeout with the ball on the 2 right there at the end of the half because of some personnel issues. Jimbo Fisher took the responsibility for that. They kicked the field goal, I would assume, because they knew they were getting the ball back in the second half, take the points, and then get the ball back to start the second half. That drive stalls out. Florida gets the ball back. They should have had an interception by Leon O'Neal, but Michael Clemens gets a hands to the face penalty that brings the interception back. And then later there's a little bit of a skirmish after a play where it probably should have just been a foul on Florida's player, but Leon O'Neal came in late, got involved, became offsetting penalties. In the next play, they burned him to a deep touchdown pass. So 2 personal foul calls. 4 of their first 5 penalties were 15-yarders, although one of them was a half a distance to the goal. And again, the personnel issues persist where they're having to burn timeouts. That could have really burned them at the end of the game too, only having 1 timeout on that final drive. It was a win, but it was not a clean win.
Yeah, they're going to play better defense. They're going to have to play better defense down the road, probably at Auburn to win, things like that. But once again, is you can build on a game you win. And Jimbo wasn't pleased with officiating. You could tell he's going to talk to the league officials about what was a penalty wasn't a penalty last week, was a penalty this week. And I think he was referring to he didn't like the roughing the passer or unsportsmanlike call against Clemens that took the interception away, because that interception would have probably led to them taking the lead earlier. So it's little things like that. So you want your defense to be aggressive, but not stupid. I think he was mad that he thought that was a bad call, but you're right. You can't, if you're Leon O'Neal, they took him out after that because you can't retaliate. They were going to get a free 15 yards, and he gave that 15 yards right back.
And that was also after Leon O'Neal took a personal foul on one of the touchdowns earlier. Now, that could have really hurt them because that gave them 15 yards. They squib kicked it, and A&M started that drive at the 6. But they actually managed to drive down
94
yards on a 94-yard. So that didn't come out to play. But yeah, Keldrick Harper came in at the end of the game. And the good thing about having Keldrick Harper out, because things were getting kind of chippy out there, Keldrick Harper's a captain, and you can tell he's a guy that the guys listened to and looked up to. And even more so than maybe some of the plays he was making, I saw anytime some guys were chirping after a play or something might happen, he was one of the first guys in to start pulling guys away and prevent more of those personal fouls. So he did seem to be a calming voice on the field as well.
And to follow up, we noticed this when the game was over. We talked about when they had that personal foul, that was their 5th penalty of the game. They didn't get any more penalties. Mm-hmm. They cleaned it up at that point. They got the big turnover. That turnover won them the game 3 points, because they could have probably had 7, because the turnover they had cost them 7 points. So the defense, while you can say I wasn't real impressed with the defense today, but once again, they're probably not going to face too many offenses as good as Florida is. And Florida only had only 400 yards because A&M's offense was so good. They kept the defense off the field a little bit. So once again, there was pluses in all areas of this game. It was a small kick to win the game, but anytime pressure's on, Small really hit that bad field goal attempt at Alabama, and his one of his
the PAT before
was really low.
He got tipped. He kicked it low. And he got tipped.
And the field goal was actually low too in the first half. So there was a lot of things we could be sitting there saying, "Oh, woe is the Aggies." They lost again to a top 5 team, but no, they found a way to get over the hump. And there's a lot of guys, as we mentioned, Spiller, Smith came back from the fumble, Kellen Mond, Chapman. I mean, the list goes on. Wiedemeyer, how about the one-handed catch? If he doesn't make that one-handed catch, they don't score that time.
Right.
Just one play.
Right. And it just did seem like the wide receivers in times where they weren't getting catches before were coming up big and making the catches.
But if you're going to win games, win championships, win to get to New Year's Six Bowls, you're going to have to make plays like that. Mm-hmm. And A&M has not made those plays in the past. No. Not enough. And I wrote my column today about this. Since 1998, these are the kind of games that A&M usually loses. Mm-hmm. They find a way to lose these games. Today, they found a way to win this game.
You want to talk about what the defense struggled with? They didn't. All the things that the defense did struggle with today, they didn't struggle with Kyle Pitts. He was maintained a good amount. Now, I know a lot of times when you get in these situations, you're doubling that guy. It opens up stuff for other receivers, but they didn't let one of the SEC's most dangerous threats beat them. They forced other guys to try to put points on the board.
Without a doubt, I knew Tony would have a big game, and he did have a big game. But they also reported, ESPN did in the second half, Pitts hurt his left foot a little bit. He was limping, and I don't know if it was on the diving catch he made, what have you, but they did a good job because when it's all said and done, Mon threw for more yards than Trask did, and Pitts wasn't the most impressive receiver in the game. Chapman was. So when you stop and think about, and Tony even had more, so once again, is a lot of good pluses for the old Agos.
Yeah. Let's go over a quick a teaser for the grades, and then we can get out of here.
I haven't really done it, but look, you beat the number 4 team in the country. I think everybody will want to take their report card home.
Do you think that, and this is the debate that everyone's going to want to have this week, you look back, LSU in 2017 wasn't the same level of ranked opponent. Then you can also look at Kentucky. What was it, 2 years?
13th, they were 13th.
Yeah, 13th.
Good, really good game.
2017. And then you have this game today. 3 very different games.
Correct.
Can you call this one the best one in Jimbo Fisher's tenure at Texas A&M, or do you look back at some of those other ones and say that this is among the best?
The reason I called this the best, because it was the first to a lot of pressure. First time to beat a top 5. The LSU was huge, but it took a review of a play that LSU actually thought they won this game. Florida didn't think they won this game. A&M outplayed Florida. You go back to Kentucky, come on, it's Kentucky. Whoever says, oh, we beat Kentucky. And I think what's going to prove out in the long run, Florida's a good team.
Yeah.
I think they still might lose to Georgia, but I think this is an 8-2 team at the worst. So A&M beats somebody. It's like everybody's excited when A&M beat South Carolina, number 9 in 2000, whatever year it was. And then South Carolina went in the tank. They were only like a 7-5 team. This is a good team they beat.
I'll tell you, the LSU game, I think, sneaks in just because it's LSU, the way they
It's a rivalry game.
First time they had beat LSU, 7 overtime. That was
A
memorable.
memorable game.
But I think really you have to compare the Kentucky game and this game. The Kentucky game, Kentucky finished as a good team that year, but if I remember right, they hadn't really played that many good opponents yet. It was one of their first tests of that season.
It's a big test for them.
And this all SEC schedule, Florida's played some teams to come into here. I mean, not the best teams, but I think it was a little bit better of a strength than Kentucky lead in that one. And you look at that Kentucky team, they were built all around Benny Snell, the run offense. That A&M was a perfect matchup because they were all about the run defense that season. This game was one where A&M had to go out and prove that they could withstand they could overcome what has been one of their weaknesses to beat a top 4 team. That is pass defense.
I thought A&M, I wouldn't have bet $1 on it, but I really thought A&M was going to win this game coming back from Alabama because I liked what their offense did. And I knew the more I studied Florida this week, that defense has got a problem. And I knew A&M playing at home is worth 7 points, even with the COVID situation. And I knew they were going to score points. And I thought A&M was going to run the ball because South Carolina and Ole Miss run the ball, and they don't have as good an offensive line, which I didn't think I would say this coming into this year, that A&M's offensive line has improved drastically. They couldn't go down. I mean, they were pretty bad last year at times. So I thought the recipe was there for A&M to win this game. And that being said, they had a lot of things go right.
Sure. Let's finish with this. I know because we won't get to talk before this all comes out. You're an AP top 25 voter. What do you think? A&M fell a significant amount after the Alabama loss to 21, from 13 to 21. They beat the number 4 team in the nation. How does it shake out with these 2 teams tomorrow? How do you think?
Here's the deal: is I was talking about this morning in Louis' show, but I think I had A&M 17th or 18th. I had a little bit higher than AP did because whatever reason, when teams lose, they fall down. But a lot of times when teams win, they don't jump up as much as you think they would unless they're out of the poll. And like Mississippi State, everybody fell in love with them. But I think, in fairness, Florida wins this game if it was in a slump. So I'm still going to probably put Florida ahead of A&M in my rankings.
Okay.
But just I'm going to put them side by side because I haven't got enough. So whether I have Florida at 9, 10, because or 11, and then I have A&M right behind them because they're going to see what everybody else did. Because I do think the home field advantage still matters on COVID, but this is a huge win because A&M is all going to play out because Florida is going to have to beat Georgia in 2 weeks to stay in the top 10 if they're still in the top 10. Mm-hmm. And I think Florida played well enough to still be a top 10 team. So maybe Florida might be 9, A&M might be 10. I don't know. I haven't looked that far ahead.
It's one of the first times I think that we've seen in college football this year that really even a 25% crowd made a difference. You had a couple times where Florida had trouble getting their calls in with the noise, and I agree with what a game that where a field goal won it. You kind of usually home field advantage gives you 3 points, and if anything, they're going to overtime in the Swamp by that measure. And yeah, the crowd made a difference today. So yeah, I agree. I think that's
a little snippet. Now, as he well knows, I do my poll about 2 a.m. And so who knows what happens between now and 2 a.m.
Right. Alex, let's give you the final thought.
I'll give you the last word, Alex.
Yeah, I guess the question is, where does A&M go from here? Next week has trap game written all over it. A&M's had a hard time winning in Starkville, and that pass defense is still suspicious. And what does Mississippi State like to do? Well, what does Mike Leach like to do? He likes to throw the ball, and they've got a guy who can do it, and they're using Kylan Hill in the passing game pretty well. I know they lost to Arkansas last week, but the Pirates still got tricks up his sleeve, and A&M can't take that game lightly. I think Jimbo said it best after the game. A&M's got to celebrate this win, but they've got to go back to work. There is a lot of things they got to clean up, and they have no time to waste because you blink an eye, and all of a sudden you're back at 2-2, and that wouldn't look too good after beating a top 5 team at home.
That'd be a long trip back from Starkville.
It really would. Thanks everyone for joining us today. Go out and celebrate well, social distanced, and wear your mask when you're not drinking your beverages. Be sure to check theeagle.com for our recaps, our videos, everything from today. Get the lowdown on Isaiah Spiller and Cease's grades and Kellen Mond breaking the record, and then we'll be back on Monday to break down A&M's first trip to see the Pirates in Starkville. So again, thanks everyone for watching, and we will be back here to talk to you soon.